If you believe you don't have a choice, you're going to act like you don't, which means you effectively don't. That's been one of the greatest freedoms of recovery, learning that I actually do have choices. And I think the greatest of those freedoms is the freedom to choose what I think, the freedom to choose what I believe.
Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. If you're tired of feeling fragmented and overwhelmed, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of wholeness, authenticity, and healthy boundaries. I'm a woman in recovery who is also a boundaries coach and speaker. I share raw and honest insights from my own journey and the principles of 12-Step Recovery. Discover how to set boundaries without guilt or shame, overcome people-pleasing tendencies, manage your emotions effectively, cultivate a stronger sense of self, and build healthier relationships. My approach is raw, honest, and sometimes a lot sweary. I'm an avid beachcomber and a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially Christmas movies. I wear fingerless gloves almost all year round because my hands are always cold. And I love taking pictures of license plates with my initials BN on them. I don't speak for or endorse any particular 12-step program of recovery. Though I'm a huge fan of 12-step recovery and a member of two such fellowships, I cannot speak for them. If you're ready for real talk and practical tools for transformation, keep listening.
This is episode 313, How to Go from Victim Mentality to Empowered Living. You have choices. When I say you have choices, you might think, yeah, of course I do. And I'm sure I thought the same thing before recovery. But honestly, I had no idea how many areas of my life I didn't even perceive as having choices. So many things just felt like that's the way it is, like this is just how life works. Over the years, I've used a phrase on this podcast again and again. That wasn't an option for me. But the truth is, it was an option. I just didn't believe it was. There's this concept from sociology, I can't remember the official name, but we often called it definition of the situation. It means if you define a situation as real, even if it's not, it's real in its consequences. So, if you believe you don't have a choice, you're going to act like you don't, which means you effectively don't. That's been one of the greatest freedoms of recovery, learning that I actually do have choices. And I think the greatest of those freedoms is the freedom to choose what I think, the freedom to choose what I believe. I had internalized so many beliefs that I thought were the truth. But a belief is really just a thought you've repeated so often that you stop seeing it as a thought. Some beliefs are drilled into us, not just through repetition, but through how we were raised. In my family, for example, we didn't communicate clearly or directly. We didn't talk about important stuff. We just pretended it didn't happen. Instead, we talked endlessly about dumb stuff like the weather. Everyone knew that dad was cheating on mom, but nobody said anything. Nobody told me, don't talk about it, but I picked it up. So when I got out into the world and met people who said things directly, I thought they were rude or there was something wrong with them. Same thing with boundaries. In my family, we had both enmeshment and abandonment. Enmeshment, where we were all up in each other's business, giving opinions and advice nobody asked for. And abandonment, usually emotional, our feelings weren't seen, affirmed, or met. Now, my parents did the best they could. They didn't know how to handle their own emotions, never mind mine. So I grew up with a lack of boundaries. People didn't mind their own damn business. And there wasn't dependable emotional support. When I started meeting people with healthy boundaries, I thought they were rude. That's actually one of the most common myths I hear, that people with boundaries are cold, rude, or bitchy. And that's probably because those people who say that grew up in environments where people with standards looked selfish, people who minded their own business seemed standoffish, and people who didn't try to rescue others seemed heartless. Now, none of that is true. It's just what we learned. And when you start to perceive you have choices, that is when you're really coming out of victim mentality. Now, I've done a lot of episodes on victim mentality, and one hallmark is believing you don't have choices. Like if someone says, I didn't have a choice, I had to take that assignment or I'd get fired. That's not true. You did have a choice. Your choices just sucked. You could have taken the assignment and had a terrible time, or take it and maybe get, or not take it and maybe get fired. You chose the lesser of two evils. That is a choice. And then once you realize you made that choice, you can let go of the complaining, let go of resenting your boss or the workload. Take responsibility for the decision you made, and then take all that energy you would have been done with the complaining and the resenting and use it to focus on doing the best you can on that assignment. Now, the belief that we don't have choices perpetuates dysfunction. It feeds the victim mindset. Just because you have victim mentality doesn't mean you haven't been victimized. You probably have. But the mentality is something you can change. For me, shifting out of victim mentality was one of the biggest paradigm shifts in recovery. I first noticed it in my relationships. I acted like I had no choices, like I was a victim of my partner's behavior, their emotional unavailability, their substance use, and even their emotional and psychological abuse. But I could have left. Even when I knew that intellectually, emotionally, I clung to those relationships. I would do anything to hold on to those relationships. That is how deep my fear of abandonment ran. I believed everything was their fault. If only they would change, then we'd be okay. That if only thinking, that is classic victim mentality. And again, this isn't about blaming yourself. It's something that happened to you, but you can make different choices going forward. My victim mentality showed up in subtle ways, not so much the world is against me, but through blaming, complaining, and if only thinking. One of my favorite examples is my victim mentality in traffic. I had this epiphany early in recovery where I realized that I believed there shouldn't be traffic, at least not when I was driving. Like I was somehow personally targeted by the traffic gods. I grew up seeing traffic equals getting pissed off and yelling. I never knew that you could be in traffic and still feel peace. Then, as part of this epiphany, I realized highways are literally built for traffic. You're not a victim of traffic, you're part of it. You are the traffic. Now, once I saw that, everything changed. I became a calmer, kinder driver. I started staying in the right lane more often. I used cruise control more often. I stopped tailgating people. When a reckless driver sped past, I'd bless them instead of cursing them. Now, I don't want to give my serenity away to a stranger on the road. I'd rather enjoy my audiobook or music or use that time to pray for people, like the people who were losing their minds in traffic. So traffic no longer equals being pissed off to me. That is a belief, not a fact. And when you hold on to beliefs like that, you're not making choices. You're not living life on purpose with intention. That's what living with healthy boundaries is, living on purpose. Boundaries mean deciding what are the standards I want for my life? What limits will I set with myself and others to uphold those standards? Now, you have to make choices about all of that, where and when to set boundaries, how to talk about them, who to stay engaged with, whether or not to keep certain people in your life. The more you do that, the more you realize, holy crap, I have way more power than I thought. I can have control over my life, not in a rigid, unhealthy way, but in a thoughtful, values-based way. So I'll wrap up by repeating this. For me, the greatest freedom of all is the freedom of thought, the freedom to choose what I think and what I believe. Now, if this notion of victim mentality is difficult for you to wrap your mind around, I get it. I was like, what is this? I'm going to put a list of episodes about victim mentality in the show notes so you can check them out. I don't think I can fit the entire list, but know that there are plenty more. My guess is you can just Google Barb Nangle and victim mentality and you will find all kinds of stuff. If you're part of ACA or are ACA curious but haven't quite gotten grounded in the literature, I'm offering a new 4-week mentoring experience. We're not doing step work and I'm not acting as a sponsor. Instead, I'll be walking you through some of ACA's most important writings: the problem, the solution, the promises, and both laundry lists. It's gentle, guided, and meant to help you connect the dots between the words on the page and your life. I decided to create this offer in honor of my 10 years in ACA, which I celebrated on Friday, April 18th, 2025. If this speaks to you, go to higherpowercc.com/ACA mentoring or message me. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did because you're still listening, you will also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has short essays similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. If you haven't already subscribed to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet, please do that. It helps carry the message to more people. I started this podcast because there was so much wisdom in recovery that just wasn't making its way out into the world. So I want as many people as possible to hear it. I'd also love it if you'd leave a 5-star rating or a review, which you can do on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find it so they can get the benefits that you've gotten from listening. If someone in particular came to mind when you listen to this episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run private and group coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net where you can get on my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. I also do short-term situational coaching to help people make it through specific situations they're going through, such as divorce, empty nesting, preparing for retirement, or any phase where their identity is shifting. Regardless of the type of coaching, my ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I'd love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.